Hello, everybody, and welcome to Living Your Best Senior Life. I'm Nancy Andre, the Community Resource Director at Wingate Living here in Needham. We are dedicated to helping seniors and their families make confident, informed choices about the next chapter of their life. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by attorney Julia Abbott, an experienced elder law attorney from Orsi Arone here in Needham, right down the street, right across from Wingate. And she is going to discuss some of the most important legal considerations for older adults and their loved ones as they plan for the future. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I love to start every segment, every time that we have the opportunity to come on and share resources with, how did you get involved in elder law? Like, what's the why behind what you do?
Great question. So I've been an estate planning attorney since 1996. And initially I did not do a lot of elder law, but as my practice evolved, I had more and more sort of clients who were, either aged into elder law, being senior citizens, or came to me as senior citizens. And I realized pretty quickly that I very much enjoy working with that population. It's a very different kind of planning than working with our sort of more higher net worth clients who are worried about estate tax minimization strategies, gifting, that type of thing. With the senior citizens, they're worried about protecting often their house, which is their biggest asset for those of us.
Which is everything,
right? For those of
Absolutely.
us, especially who live around here. So working with them and their families to try to protect and preserve assets that we can, if possible, from the exorbitant cost of nursing home is, very, very rewarding and helpful, and it's just a nice relationship.
I love that. Well, you can tell you've got that special heart, I think, and that's originally why we were attracted to one another, just like-minded people. So I'm so happy you're here today.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you some questions. Can you just start with explaining what is elder law? Well, and kind of pull it apart in really simple terms.
Yeah. So there's sort of general estate planning, right? And then there's elder law. Estate planning kind of focuses more on what happens after death, right? Okay. How are assets getting distributed to kids? Are they going through probate? That type of thing. Elder law is more what happens while the senior citizen is alive, right?
Okay.
But later in life. So it focuses on, the financial aspects of getting older. What's going to happen when we're not able to stay in the home anymore? Can we afford to bring care into us? Can we afford to go to a continuing care retirement community? What happens if we need a nursing home? Healthcare proxies, living wills, end-of-life decisions.
Right.
Those are sort of the things that elder law attorneys focus more on as opposed to...
So it's almost before.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. Okay.
Yep.
What are some common misconceptions with that, would you say?
Oh, there's a lot. So I think a lot of those are, the things that we hear often are, I'm never going to a nursing home.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. You're not taking me out of this house.
I'm going out feet first, right? But also I don't want to be a burden to my children.
Right.
How are we justifying those two? You're not going to be a burden to your child, but you're never leaving the house, and your adult children probably have their own families and their own jobs. Right. So how is that going to play out? I think some other things, people feel like, well, if I have a basic will in place, then I'm all set and there won't be any probate and everything will just sort of seamlessly flow to my children after I die. Also not true. We can talk more about that later.
Okay.
If I just give away my assets over time, right, then I won't have anything left, and then I'll qualify for Medicaid and I'll be able to go into a nursing home. So people don't know about that 5-year look-back period that we can talk more about. So oftentimes they'll come to us, they've been gradually giving money away over the years, and it turns out there's a whole disqualification period because they didn't know about the 5-year look-back, and they think by just sort of ridding themselves of their assets, right, that they can give their money to their daughter one day and qualify for Medicaid the next. And they're very surprised to hear that that's not the case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what advice when it comes to planning for long-term care or protecting the assets, what would you suggest?
So I have a whole host of answers to that. One is, I think initially, when you realize that mom or dad or whoever you're dealing with, is maybe starting to, where we should start thinking about sort of next steps.
Okay.
I think the first thing to do is contact a life care manager, also known as a geriatric care manager. These people, we actually just had lunch with one yesterday.
Yes.
They are worth their weight in gold because they have their pulse sort of on all the communities like Wingate that have availability, that are quality care. They know how much it costs. They know what the level of care is. They know who the other residents are living there. They know what's offered, what's not offered. They know if you want to try to stay in the home and bring care in, they can help you with that. If you're just not sure what mom and dad need, but you're starting to see some signs, I don't know, should we bring care in? Are they safe in the home? Should we bring them to, can they qualify for independent living? Is it assisted living? Is it time for nursing home, memory care? They can help with that evaluation and that assessment.
Okay.
And really steer you in the right direction and save the family, the kids, whoever it is, a ton of time kind of trying to do that research on their own, calling around places. Do you have availability? How much does it cost? Right? And trying to do that whole analysis while you're also worried about mom or dad.
Right, so it allows you to get back to what the important thing is spending that time with your loved one. And these angels, and I do call them angels,
oh, for sure.
The life care managers,
yes.
Worth every penny and more so.
Every penny.
Because they are going to direct you to the resources that you need.
Exactly.
And ultimately direct somebody to you that can help. But that's the first. I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm really glad you brought that
they've
up.
all been vetted,
Yes.
right? So they've visited all these CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities. They've visited all of them. They've vetted the in-home care people. They know. They know. They have done the research.
Yes.
So during COVID, that was crucial. Which of these places has a high rate of COVID, or a huge turnover in nurses or whatever it is, right? They have their finger on the pulse of all these places. And I think it just, like you said very eloquently, it just saves the family from doing all that work. And the kids can focus on mom and dad and sort of outsource the rest of this.
Absolutely.
And they are angelic.
They get their life back.
They get their life back. And they are angelic, right?
Yeah.
They are, they're lovely, they're kind, especially the ones that we know and that we work with and we recommend. They're just, I trust them with my own parents.
Oh, yeah.
So that's thing one. I think call a geriatric life care manager first. I'm so used to calling them geriatric care managers.
I know.
But I know they've sort of
it's
switched
a term,
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've changed it to life care manager. But
trying to get that into
we
my
get
head.
it. It's still exactly. Okay. That's God, thank you for bringing that up because that's a brilliant point.
Yeah.
What about, I want to touch on Medicaid and asset protection.
Yeah.
Medicaid planning is something that we hear all the time. Can you briefly explain what that involves? And when should families start thinking about this?
That's $1 million question.
Right.
If I had a crystal ball, I would be a heck of an estate planning elder law attorney. So I think the first thing is to distinguish between Medicare and Medicaid, right? Okay. So those are two terms that are sort of loosely,
yes.
Right? Medicare is life insurance for senior citizens. Medicaid is long-term custodial care.
Okay.
Right? So in order to qualify for Medicaid, which is nursing home only, Medicaid does not pay for assisted living or independent living. So it's long-term custodial care only. That is, in order to qualify for that, the person who's going into the nursing home can only have $2,000 in their own name.
Wow.
The at-home spouse, the wealthy spouse, the community spouse, those are all synonyms for the same thing. They can only have about $155,000 of assets in their own name. So, one thing that an elder law attorney can do is help with a spend down, right? To try to get them down to those levels in a way that's legal and permissible by Medicaid.
Okay.
Right? And then get them qualified. So that's Medicare and Medicaid.
And thank you. You made that so simple.
Oh, good.
Which is so important because when you don't do this,
right.
it's hard,
right.
And it's hard to explain it like that. So I love this, the simple way of explaining it. So thank you.
Yes, I think people think that Medicare will pay for. No,
it doesn't.
It does not.
Exactly. So Medicare, Medicaid.
Yep.
All right.
And then when to look at it. So I have clients in their 40s who will say, so this revocable trust that we just did, this will help with nursing home. Like, you're 40. what are you worried about? Is
I
there
love
something-
it. They're
is there
honest,
something
right?
I don't know? But I think, they have a neighbor or a friend or a colleague or a
Right.
parent who's done that. So they think like, well, this is part of estate planning, right? So I say, unless there's some diagnosis that you're not telling me about, we're not going to worry about this for at least 20 years.
Okay.
Right? So I say, in their mid to late 60s, early 70s, what I don't want is for them to come to me and say, my mom just fell, she's in a nursing home, in a hospital, and she can't go home, and we need to get her on Medicaid. Tomorrow?
Oh, gosh.
No, this is now we're
It's always that emergency.
right. So that's crisis
Yeah.
planning, right? There's crisis planning and there's proactive planning. So crisis planning is what I just said. They've fallen, they can't go home.
Okay.
We got to get them into a nursing home. Proactive planning is, in a perfect world, we have 5 years, hopefully,
Okay.
in order to set up an irrevocable trust into which we transfer assets, often the house, and we hope that for at least 5 years, mom and dad don't need to go into a nursing home.
Okay.
If they do need to go into a nursing home during that time, we will use their other assets, hopefully, to get them through that 5-year clock. We can privately pay to get them through that 5-year clock.
Okay.
And then after the 5 years has elapsed, once they are down to those spending levels of $2,150, then we'll apply for Medicaid.
And so the house then
Is
is protected.
So they might be able to get on Medicaid, depending on the rest of their other assets
Sure,
and whether
sure.
they're, medically qualified to go on Medicaid. So as long as they're spent down and they're medically qualified, after 5 years, we can apply for Medicaid.
Okay.
And we do have to reveal the existence of the house, but we say it's been in a trust, and we ever produce a copy of the trust, and we say, but that house, no matter what its value is
Okay.
protected.
So it's absolutely critical to take that first step.
essential.
You have to.
You have to.
And there's nothing, if they didn't do it and they come back and, again, oh my goodness, you're kind of caught.
We're pretty stuck.
Yeah,
The other
okay.
thing to look at and to consider, and I don't sell this, I don't have a horse in the race, but long-term care insurance is,
Oh gosh.
is important. It has a bad rap, somewhat justifiably, somewhat not.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. So if
And
it's
you
in the
can't have
budget-
pre-existing,
Right.
correct? So
Correct.
when you're older, the smart thing to do is to have it and to get a policy when you're
yeah, in
young
your,
and very
40s.
healthy, right?
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
what I tell those 40-year-olds who ask me about nursing home.
Advice.
Go look at long-term care.
Okay.
Right. I know that sometimes it's hard to go on claim, or the company sometimes move out of Massachusetts. But I have clients who have bought it and who have used it, and it has been a lifesaver.
It's a lifesaver.
Absolute
One of the first communities, senior living communities that I represented, several of the residents were in there almost 100% on their long-term.
Yep.
And it makes me so happy to know,
I know.
that they had purchased this gem, and I do call it a gem,
Yes.
so many years ago,
Yes.
and they can actually use it.
Yeah. I have had
It's
clients
incredible.
at Wingate who were on it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But it's
really-
only for assisted living or memory support.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So there are some long-term care policies that you can purchase, right? You can really customize it.
Okay.
Right? How long is the elimination period? What's the coverage over the day? There are policies that you can buy to cover in-home care.
Okay.
So lots of different ways to structure it. Like I said, I don't sell it. I don't have a horse in the race, but boy, am I a big proponent of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's a niche. So don't call SBLI for
Gotcha.
your long-term care.
Okay.
So
We've got the first steps again is life care manager, making sure that you are all set from this angle, and then moving forward. Okay. Huge. Long-term insurance, excuse me.
Yes.
Legal documents, let's talk about them. Every senior should have what? What are the essential legal documents?
They're all essential.
Okay.
So the incapacity documents, let's start with those.
Okay.
A healthcare proxy.
Okay.
Right? Name somebody who can make your healthcare decisions if you're not able to make them yourself.
All right.
Without that, right? If you don't have a healthcare proxy and I have a client who fell off a roof. He was a construction guy. He fell off a roof.
Oh.
He had a stroke. He's on the ground, alive, but completely
my
incapacitated.
God.
No healthcare proxy. That day, I had to go. His wife came into me, even though they're married. She came into me. We had to go into court, to Middlesex Probate Court, and get an emergency guardianship so that she could make decisions for him. Yes.
Oh
So
my
that's what will happen.
God.
Some doctors will allow a spouse or a child, right? But you can't count on it. You cannot count on it.
Wow, and especially in this day and age where everything is HIPAA and doing things by the book, like wow.
Exactly. So HIPAA is the next one, right? Make sure if the HIPAA, we do a separate HIPAA from the healthcare proxy. Some attorneys will build it in, but it doesn't make any sense for me to authorize you to make my healthcare decisions, but then not authorize you to talk to my doctors or see my medical records. So we got to do both, right? So HIPAA release, healthcare proxy. A living will. A living will is not binding in Massachusetts.
What is a living will?
So it basically says, if I'm in a persistent vegetative state with no reasonable hope of recovery, I do not want to be kept alive on machines.
Okay.
I don't want artificial hydration and nutrition. So it's not binding. We are one of 3 states that does not have a living will statute, but we offer it to clients, and most clients accept it because it's guidance to their healthcare proxy. So
if somebody's going into the hospital or not going, just it sounds like they're going shopping on Sunday. Somebody needs to go into the hospital, they're sick, or let's just use something like a stroke.
Yep.
And they have done this or prepared this document with you that says, I do, after a week of being like this and living on life support, I do not want to live like this.
Correct.
Can they detach from that point?
So it's in Massachusetts, it's the healthcare proxy who will make that decision.
Okay.
So they'll look at the living will, right, and say, okay, this is what mom says. She said if this is the scenario, then please don't keep me alive. She will then direct the doctor, please take her off life support. This is what she indicated that she wanted in her living will.
Okay. So that is relatively simple. If you follow.
Very simple.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
The next one is power of attorney.
Okay.
So like the healthcare proxy authorizes someone to make your healthcare decisions.
Right.
The power of attorney authorizes someone to make your financial decisions.
And usually it's 2 different.
It's 2 different documents.
Okay.
Yep. And can be 2 different people, or it can be the same person. Right.
Okay.
You might have a child who's wonderful with finances, but you would never let them pull the plug.
We
right?
know all about that, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
So this authorizes them to make your financial decisions, to pay your bills, to coordinate the preparation and filing of your income taxes, to make sure your mortgage is paid, to basically do anything that you could do if you had capacity.
Okay.
And again, without it, for my client who fell off the roof, we had to get a conservatorship, which is different than a guardianship. So we had to get 2 things, authorizing his wife to pay his bills and have access to his accounts, and also to make his medical
Seriously?
decisions. Yep. And the emergency guardianship is just step 1. Then you have to come back in and get temporary guardianship and then a permanent guardianship. So we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that could be easily avoided with a healthcare proxy and a power of attorney. So those 3 or 4 documents, healthcare proxy, living will, HIPAA authorization, power of attorney. Everybody needs a will. You don't have to be the landed gentry to have a will. Everybody needs a will.
Okay. No matter how little or how much.
Exactly.
All right.
Yep.
Good to know.
Without that, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a plan for you. If you die intestate, which means you die without a will, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a plan for where your assets will go. And it might not be the plan that you have.
Okay.
So
that's absolutely, and you see this. Well, obviously you see it because of what you do, but I see it as far as just being involved in this, in the senior living community, and just past experiences as we age, and friends and family, and you just think, oh my gosh, so it's like that guidance piece.
Exactly.
Everybody needs a you. No matter how little or how much they have, it doesn't matter.
Right. And the complexity will depend on, how much or how little.
But it's probably the best
crucial.
spent money.
Exactly. The final thing is, depending on what they have in the way of assets, they might need a trust, either an irrevocable trust if we're doing Medicaid planning, or just a revocable trust, because we want to make sure that there's no probate when they pass away.
All right.
And probate is the court-driven process for how assets change title after someone passes. Okay. So if I pass away with a bank account at Bank of America in the name of Julia Abbott, and it doesn't have a beneficiary, and it's not titled in my trust, then in order for it to get to my kids, it has to go through probate, which can take the better part of a year.
Okay.
And the kids won't really have access to the funds while it's tied up in probate. So for those of us with, investment accounts, real estate, other assets, very important, if we're not doing that irrevocable trust, to do a revocable trust and avoid probate.
Wow. All right. And that's a great point, the whole beneficiary, and people probably change. I know, personally that can happen, and
Yep.
to make the changes, but you need to actually legally make the change
Correct.
on the documents, because you can say, I didn't mean to, shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Right.
It doesn't help, right?
Right.
It's not
No.
going to stand. In
No. Uncle
Okay.
Charlie said that, I took care of him, so he was leaving me the house.
yeah.
Well, if that's
Guess
not
what?
what it
It's not
says in
written.
his documents, then that's not going to happen.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, family conversations. I know so many of these questions and answers, they're kind of all tied around each other, but for somebody to start the process, the first thing that they need to do is to suggest, for example, if it's a child for their loved one, for their mom and dad,
Yep.
the first thing is to say, we need to make a consult with you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Or even start, back up from that, life care manager, right?
And then the life care managers are typically
I'd say-
connected.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I think, to the extent that it's possible, it's not fun for even adult children
Exactly.
to bring up this topic with mom and dad, right? It's just, kids don't want to think about their parents passing.
Yeah.
I get
No
it.
one does. Yeah.
I don't either.
Right.
But, it's crucial, because if the parents pass away and the kids are completely in the dark, because this was a taboo subject, right? And
Which
it
it
is
is.
in a lot of families.
Yes, it is.
Right, then you're leaving with the kids with a mess. And, so now the kids just lost mom and dad, emotions are high, and now we're doing a scavenger hunt for where the assets are, what the passwords are, where the
Oh,
accounts are
God,
held,
yeah.
right?
You can avoid all of that.
All of that.
All of it. Just
All of
by.
that. I have a binder for my
Yeah.
kids.
I have a binder too,
Yeah.
and it's
all in there.
Exactly.
This is the person who cuts the grass.
Yep.
This is the person who cleans the house. This is where all my accounts are, and these are the passwords, and these are the account numbers.
it's
Here's
huge.
the
And it doesn't
roadmap.
even take that long to do.
It doesn't.
So
It doesn't.
All right. So, in your experience, how does working with the senior living community, for example, like Wingate, complement the legal process for your clients?
So, first of all, I want to live at Wingate.
Well, we have a place for you.
It's spectacular. It is spectacular, and I have eaten lunch there, and it was delicious. There was a salad dressing there this was years ago that I will just never forget.
Oh, okay.
But I think for Wingate, and I'm a huge proponent of these places, as my clients, and my parents age. So I think a couple things. One is, one of the places, especially like Wingate, that has the sort of staggered, levels of care, right? So mom and dad can go there. If dad's in the memory unit, but mom doesn't need that, they can be on the same campus.
Exactly.
So mom's in independent living, surrounded by friends. She's got a community,
Yes.
right? She can take advantage of the activities, and then she can go eat dinner with her
dad.
husband
Exactly.
every night. So I think that's wonderful. I've
No, I agree. I think that's huge.
huge.
It's just it's just perfect.
Yeah.
None of it's perfect. You don't want anybody. You just want to
Right.
gracefully age and then go to bed one night and not wake up. But it's just
Exactly.
not the reality of the situation.
Unfortunately, no. And I think then if mom or dad do pass, the surviving spouse is already settled
Yes.
in a place. They've got a community. They're not isolated. They're not rattling around the family home in Needham, the 4,000 square family home
Yeah.
by themselves. Are they safe? The adult kids are feeling like they need to come over there and take care of them all the time and keep them company and get them groceries and make sure the house is clean and the rugs
it's
aren't
a
going to
nightmare.
trip them.
Yeah,
And So
exactly.
it's just for everybody involved, including the adult kids.
Absolutely.
If we know that mom or dad are safe at a place like Wingate, it's a
And they don't have to get through that adjustment period because it takes time. All right, we just have a few more minutes. What's a piece of advice that you would give to families who might feel just overwhelmed right now about planning for aging, long-term care? What's just like a quote or something that you can offer and leave them with to know that it's going to be okay, as long as they do A, B, C, and D.
So I would say that, not to toot my own horn, but I would say maybe 80% of my elder law clients who come into the office, come in with this terrified look on their face, right? They don't want to lose control of their assets, right? They're scared about having to make these, housing transitions, right? The kids are overwhelmed. And by the time we sort of finish the process, and I've connected them with the U's of the world and the life care managers of the world, and we've updated their estate planning documents, I want to say 75% of them say, I feel so much better.
And their shoulders go down.
And their shoulders go down, and the wrinkles go out from under their, they're not scrunching their eyebrows anymore. And they say, this was so much easier than we thought it was going to be. So
I
and then,
literally I love that. And I do need to also toot your horn. When we were having lunch, I think it was the other day, and you were just talking about how committed you are to the clients that you work with and going above and beyond. And you just said it so, just a matter of fact, like, you just do this. You just do A, B, C, and D. And I personally I was already impressed. I was even more impressed.
That's very sweet.
If we were all like you and like, doing everything we could do and going above and beyond, this world would be a far better place. So thank you. Thank you for doing everything that you do. All right, so we are almost up. It has been so incredibly helpful having you here today.
So
I
fun.
can't thank you enough for sharing all of your insights with us. And how can people get in touch with you?
Oh my gosh.
So talk to us. Tell us your
Nancy's-
email. Tell us your contact number.
That's so nice.
everything.
So as Nancy said, my firm is Orsi Arone. We're on Gould Street in Needham. And my phone number is 781-239-8900. And my email address is jabbott, like Abbott and Costello, so ABBOTT, at OARlawyers.com.
Okay. I am also happy at any point in time to do a personal connection
Wonderful.
with
Thank
you. You are also one of the most responsive professionals that I've worked with, and I so appreciate that because I know that's so important also to people listening that are interested in connecting. You want somebody that can take a client
Absolutely.
and get back to you.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Oh,
thank you,
thank
and
you.
thank you for everything you do. Until next time, I want to take a second to thank everybody who's listening to us. We hope that this has provided you with just a little bit more information on a very complicated, but it doesn't have to be that complicated,
That's right.
topic.
Yes.
So live well, take care, and we'll see you next time.